Hello everyone, welcome to Machiavellian Mind. Today I will show you how to handle disrespect the way Machiavellian would. That makes people think twice before they ever test you. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with cold and calculated power. Watch the video till the end and subscribe to Machiavellian Mind.
Someone disrespected you. Maybe it was subtle, a tone, a dismissal, a smirk while you spoke. Maybe it was loud, done in front of others, designed to shrink you, to test you, to define you as someone who can be handled. And here you are, still carrying it. Which tells me one of two things. Either you're burning with rage and don't know what to do with it, or you already made the mistake of reacting, of showing them exactly how deep the blade went. Either way, you lost round one. But something in you refuses to stay on the losing side. Good. Because what I'm about to hand you isn't motivation, isn't empty confidence. It's a system. Cold, precise, drawn from the darkest corners of power philosophy, from Machiavelli, from the psychology of men who ruled empires, survived betrayal, and made their enemies fear them without ever raising their voice. This isn't about revenge. Revenge is for the emotional. This is about architecture, rebuilding yourself into something that simply cannot be disrespected twice. 7 rules, 1 outcome. You become untouchable. Drop "I don't react, I reign" in the comments right now. Rule 1. Never let them see the wound. Here is the first thing Machiavelli understood that most men never will. Your reaction is your weakness made visible. The moment you flinch, the moment your jaw tightens in public, the moment you fire back with emotion, you have handed your enemy the most powerful weapon they could ever use against you, and you gave it to them for free. You showed them the wound, and a man who shows his wound in battle deserves to lose. This is not cruelty. This is simply the law of power. Pain that is visible becomes a tool in someone else's hands. Think about the men you've seen who command rooms without demanding attention. The ones nobody dares to test twice. They don't explode. They don't justify. They don't chase. They go quiet in a way that makes the air change around them. That silence isn't weakness. That silence is controlled devastation. It is the discipline of a man who has trained himself to feel everything and show nothing, because he understands that composure in the face of disrespect is not peace. It is dominance. When someone disrespects you, your body wants to react in seconds. Your ego screams at you to defend yourself, to match their energy, to make them feel what you're feeling. And that impulse is exactly what they're counting on. Weak men bait you with disrespect because they know that if you react, they win. They wanted your emotion. They wanted your chaos. They wanted to see that they have power over your internal world. Your silence, cold, deliberate, unshaken, denies them everything. It strips them of the satisfaction. It leaves them exposed and confused because they threw something at you and you didn't even blink. That is psychological warfare at its finest. That is Machiavellian. From this moment forward, you train your face like a mask. You train your voice like a blade, sharp when necessary, sheathed the rest of the time. You feel the disrespect, you register it, you file it, but you do not bleed in public. Ever, because kings do not bleed in the court. They bleed alone, they harden in private, and they return to the room more dangerous than before. Drop "I don't react, I reign" in the comments if you're still with me. Rule 2. Make them question their own move. The second rule is where most men fail completely because it requires something that does not come naturally. It requires you to think while you are hurting, to strategize while your pride is bleeding, to become a chess player in a moment when every instinct in your body is telling you to flip the board. Rule 2 is this. After disrespect, you do not defend yourself, you do not explain yourself, and you do not attack immediately. Instead, you make them question whether they just made the biggest mistake of their life. You shift the psychological weight. You make the disrespect their problem, not yours. Here is how the weak man handles disrespect. He reacts, he justifies, he argues, he tries to prove his worth to the very person who just insulted it. And in doing so, he confirms everything the disrespect implied. He looks small, he looks rattled, He looks like a man who needed their approval all along. But the Machiavellian man does something entirely different. He pauses, not out of hesitation, out of deliberate, calculated control. He looks at the person who disrespected him with the kind of calm that doesn't feel like calm at all. It feels like a storm being held back by a single iron door. And in that pause, in that silence, in that unflinching gaze, the other person begins to feel something they did not expect to feel: doubt. Because when a man does not react to being hit, when he absorbs the blow and simply stares back with complete composure, it triggers a primal fear in the aggressor. Their brain asks a question they cannot answer. Why isn't he afraid of me? What does he know that I don't? What is he about to do? And that question, that seed of uncertainty, that is your weapon. Machiavelli wrote that fear is more reliable than love, but what he understood beneath that was even darker. The most paralyzing fear is not fear of pain, it is fear of the unknown. A man who reacts predictably is manageable. A man who responds with stillness and silence is terrifying because nobody knows his next move. You become unpredictable, and unpredictable men are never truly dominated. Now here is the practical layer. After the pause, after the silence, you respond if you choose to, but never in their emotional register. If they were loud, you are quiet. If they were aggressive, you are measured. If they tried to embarrass you publicly, you respond with such calm dignity that the audience stops seeing a man being disrespected and starts seeing a man revealing someone else's insecurity. You don't win the argument. You make the argument irrelevant. You elevate yourself so far above the moment that they look like a child throwing a tantrum at a king's feet. That is the shift. That is the power. You are not responding to disrespect. You are exposing it, framing it, and using it to show the world exactly who has control in that room. And it was never them. It was always you. From this point forward, every act of disrespect thrown at you is not an attack. It is an audition. They are showing you and everyone watching exactly what kind of person they are. And you, by your response alone, are showing the world exactly what kind of man you have become. Drop, I move in silence, I strike with purpose, in the comments right now, because that phrase is the energy of everything we just covered. Rule 3. Cut off their supply. There is a concept in dark psychology that most people walk past their entire lives without ever understanding. And it is this: every person who disrespects you is feeding off something. They are extracting a resource from you, whether they are conscious of it or not. That resource has a name. It is called supply. And supply, in the language of power psychology, means your attention, your emotion, your reaction, your justification, your anger, your pain, all of it. Every single response you give to someone who disrespects you, whether it is fury or tears or desperate explanation, is supply. It is fuel, it is food. And the moment you understand this, the entire game changes permanently, because now you know that the most devastating thing you can do to someone who disrespects you is not to fight back. It is to starve them, to remove the supply completely, to become, in their world, a source that has gone dry. Think about what disrespect actually is at its psychological root. It is a bid for dominance, yes, but beneath that, it is almost always a cry for reaction. The person who undermines you in a meeting needs to see you squirm. The person who dismisses you in public needs to see your face change. The person who insults your work, your choices, your character, they are pulling a lever and waiting for the machine to respond. Every bully in history, every manipulator, every small man with a loud mouth, they are all operating on the same primitive mechanism. They push, they wait for the response, and the response confirms their power. So you remove the response, not loudly, not dramatically. You do not announce that you are cutting them off, because that itself is a reaction. You simply stop being a source. You become unavailable. Emotionally, energetically, psychologically. Your attention, which was once something they could provoke and control, becomes something they can no longer access. And nothing, absolutely nothing, destabilizes a person who feeds on reaction more than suddenly receiving none. Machiavelli understood this at the level of statecraft, that withdrawing favor, withdrawing presence, withdrawing acknowledgement was often more punishing than open warfare. Because open warfare gives the enemy something to fight against. Withdrawal gives them nothing. It leaves them in a vacuum, and the human mind abhors a vacuum. They will fill it with anxiety, with confusion, with self-doubt. They will replay the moment over and over, wondering what they did, wondering what changed, wondering why you suddenly became someone they cannot reach. And while they are trapped in that spiral, you are already 3 moves ahead, building, growing, becoming more dangerous by the day. Now understand this clearly. Cutting off supply does not mean becoming cold to everyone. It does not mean you walk through the world with walls so high that nothing reaches you. It means you become highly selective with your emotional energy. You treat your attention like a currency that only the worthy can earn, and you stop spending it on people who have demonstrated they will use it against you. The people who respect you get the full version of you. Warm, engaged, present. The people who disrespect you get nothing, not anger, not coldness even, just absence, just the quiet, devastating reality that you have moved on and they no longer exist in the territory of your concern. That is not weakness, that is not avoidance. That is the most refined form of power a man can exercise, the power of complete emotional sovereignty. The power to decide, with absolute clarity, who gets access to your inner world and who does not. Most men give that access away for free to anyone who demands it loudly enough. The Machiavellian man guards it like a fortress, and he only opens the gate on his own terms, in his own time, for his own reasons. So let them talk, let them push, let them escalate. You are no longer in the market for their drama. You have cut the cord, removed the supply, and stepped out of their psychological reach entirely. And the silence they receive from you will echo louder in their mind than any argument you could have ever won. That is rule 3. That is how you starve an ego without ever lifting a finger. Drop "I withdraw my energy and watch them collapse" in the comments right now. Because if you have understood this section, that phrase should feel like a weapon you just picked up for the first time. Rule 4. Build so high they can't reach you. There is a truth that the powerful have always known and the powerless have always ignored, and it is brutally simple. The best response to disrespect is not a comeback. It is not a confrontation. It is not even silence alone. It is elevation. It is building yourself, your life, your reputation, your capabilities to such a height that the person who once disrespected you can no longer even see you clearly from where they are standing. Because here is what nobody tells you about disrespect. It has an expiration date, but only if you use it correctly. Every insult, every dismissal, every moment someone looked at you and decided you were beneath them, that is either going to rot inside you and poison your potential, or you are going to convert it, transmute it, turn it into the coldest, most focused fuel that has ever driven a man forward. The Machiavellian does not waste pain. He metabolizes it. He takes the sting of being underestimated and he builds it into the foundation of something so undeniable that the world has no choice but to acknowledge it. This is not motivation speech territory. This is strategic psychology. When a man is disrespected and he goes quiet, and then he disappears from the social landscape of the person who wronged him, and then months later, he resurfaces having built something remarkable. A business, a body, a reputation, a skill set, a network, a life that radiates power and intention. That return is more devastating to the ego of the person who disrespected him than any argument, any confrontation, any public humiliation could ever be. Because now that person has to live with something far worse than guilt. They have to live with the knowledge that they underestimated you, that they had access to you at a time when you were still becoming, and they chose to diminish you instead of recognize you. And now you are beyond their reach, beyond their circle, beyond their world entirely, and there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. That is a wound that never fully heals in a person's ego. Never. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must always be building alliances, building strength, building the infrastructure of his power even in times of peace, because the man who only prepares during crisis is always too late. Apply that to your personal life with ruthless precision. While they are gossiping about you, you are studying. While they are waiting for you to react, you are training. While they are comfortable in their smallness, you are becoming uncomfortable on purpose, pushing into harder rooms, harder conversations, harder disciplines, because you understand that discomfort is the price of ascension, and you are willing to pay it every single day. And here is the dark psychological layer that makes this rule so powerful. Human beings are deeply, almost pathologically, affected by contrast. The same people who dismissed you when you were at a certain level will be desperate for your attention when you are at a higher one. Not because they changed, not because they suddenly recognized your worth, but because social proof, success, and visible power rewire how people perceive everyone around them. When you rise, their disrespect looks foolish in retrospect, and they know it, and you will never have to say a single word about it. Your elevation says everything. Your results are the argument that cannot be disputed. Your life, built with intention and fueled by every moment someone told you that you weren't enough, becomes the most eloquent, most devastating, most Machiavellian response you could ever deliver. So let them disrespect you today. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate. Let them feel safe in their assessment of you, because you are not building for today. You are building for the moment when they look up and finally understand what they were dealing with all along. And by then, you will already be somewhere they cannot follow. That is Rule 4. That is elevation as warfare. Drop. They doubted me in silence. I'll answer them with my rise in the comments right now. Let me see who in this audience is genuinely building and not just watching. Rule 5. Use their disrespect as intelligence. Most men treat disrespect like an injury. They nurse it. They replay it. They let it fester into something that consumes more energy than the original act ever deserved. But the Machiavellian man treats disrespect like data. Cold, precise, actionable intelligence about the person standing in front of him. Because here is the truth that power philosophy has understood for centuries. A person reveals everything about themselves in the moment they choose to disrespect you. Everything, their insecurities, their fears, their weaknesses, their desperation, their ceiling, all of it surfaces in that single act. And if you are composed enough, if you have trained yourself to observe instead of react, you will see it all with perfect clarity. Think about what it actually takes for a person to disrespect someone. It requires them to make a calculation, conscious or not, that the target is safe to attack, that there will be no real consequence, that the social environment permits it, that they are in a position of enough perceived superiority to risk it. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that their disrespect is not really about you. It is about their need to establish dominance in a situation where they feel threatened, insecure, or desperate for status. The loudest person in the room is almost never the most powerful. They are the most anxious. They are using aggression as armor, and the moment you understand that, the moment you truly internalize it, you stop taking their disrespect personally and you start reading it professionally. You start asking not, why did they do that to me? But what does that behavior tell me about who they are, what they fear, and how they can be navigated or neutralized? Machiavelli was a master of this. He did not respond to political enemies with emotion. He studied them. He watched how they moved, how they made decisions under pressure, what they valued, what they feared losing, and then he used that knowledge to position himself with surgical precision. He turned every act of aggression toward him into a lesson in his enemy's psychology. You must do the same in your daily life. When someone disrespects you, file it. Note what they did, how they did it, who was watching when they chose to do it, and what they were trying to gain from the exchange. Were they trying to look powerful in front of others? Then they are insecure about their status. Were they trying to undermine your credibility in a professional setting? Then they are threatened by your competence. Were they dismissive and cold after a period of warmth? Then they are using emotional withdrawal as a control mechanism, and they have shown you exactly the kind of person they are beneath the surface. This intelligence does not just help you deal with them. It helps you deal with every person like them for the rest of your life. Every disrespect you decode is a masterclass in human psychology. Every manipulator you study makes you harder to manipulate. Every small person who tries to diminish you and fails teaches you something about your own composure, your own strength, your own developing mastery over the social and psychological landscape you move through every day. And the most powerful part of this rule is what it does to your internal state. When you shift from feeling attacked to feeling like an observer, from being the victim of disrespect to being the analyst of it, something changes in your posture, your energy, your presence. You become calmer, you become sharper, you become the kind of man who walks into rooms and makes people instinctively careful because they sense, without being able to fully explain it, that you see more than you say, that you know more than you reveal, and that you are never quite as unaware as you appear. That is the power of intelligence over emotion. That is Rule 5. Drop. I don't feel disrespect, I decode it in the comments right now. Because if that line hits you, you are already thinking like a Machiavellian. Rule 6. Control the narrative before they do. There is a war happening around you that most men are completely unaware of, and it is not fought with fists or arguments or even money. It is fought with perception, with story, with the narrative that exists in the minds of the people who watch you, work beside you, move through your social and professional world every single day. And here is the brutal reality that Machiavelli understood better than almost any philosopher who ever lived. It does not matter who you actually are, nearly as much as it matters who people believe you to be. Perception is not just reality. It is the only reality that has any social consequence whatsoever, which means that when someone disrespects you, especially publicly, they are not just attacking you, they are attempting to author a story about you. They are trying to plant a version of you in the minds of everyone watching, a version that is smaller, weaker, less credible, less worthy of respect than the truth. And if you do not take control of that narrative immediately and deliberately, their version begins to solidify. It begins to stick, and you will spend months, sometimes years, undoing the damage of a story you allowed someone else to tell about you unchallenged. This is where most men lose the long game entirely. They focus on winning the moment, the argument, the confrontation, the emotional exchange. And they completely neglect the war for perception that is happening simultaneously in the minds of every witness to the exchange. The Machiavellian man does the opposite. He is always thinking about the room before he thinks about the individual. He is always asking, what is the story that this moment is telling? And how do I ensure that the story serves me rather than destroys me? And the way you control narrative is not by explaining yourself, not by defending yourself loudly, not by rallying people to your side with emotional appeals, because all of those moves make you look reactive, which makes you look weak, which hands authorship of the story right back to the person who disrespected you in the first place. You control narrative through comportment, through the image you project in the aftermath of disrespect. If someone attacks your character publicly and you respond with dignity, measured language, and visible composure, the audience does not see a man being destroyed. They see a man revealing someone else's instability. The attacker becomes the story. Their aggression, their desperation, their need to diminish someone in front of others, that becomes the defining detail that people walk away remembering. You simply provided the contrast that made their ugliness visible. Beyond the immediate moment, you control narrative through consistency, through being the same man in public that you are in private, through building a reputation so solid over time that a single act of disrespect from someone smaller than you simply does not adhere to the surface of who you are known to be. Reputation is armor. A man who has spent years demonstrating integrity, capability, and calm authority does not need to defend himself when someone attacks him, because the people who matter already know the truth, and the people who don't know the truth will measure the attack against everything they have already observed about you and find the attack wanting. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must cultivate his image as carefully as he cultivates his army. Because in the theater of power, how you appear is as important as what you actually possess. So you must become a deliberate architect of your own image, not through performance or pretense, but through the disciplined, consistent, daily practice of being the most composed, most capable, most unshakable version of yourself in every environment you enter. Because the man who controls how he is perceived controls the social world around him. He controls who approaches him and who avoids him. He controls who respects him and who fears him. He controls the temperature of every room he walks into, the dynamic of every relationship he operates within, and ultimately the trajectory of his own life. Because perception shapes opportunity, and opportunity shapes destiny. Let them write their version of you. Let them whisper their narrative into whatever ears will listen. You will be too busy living a life so undeniably powerful, so visibly intentional, so quietly magnetic that the world rewrites their story about you without you ever having to ask. That is the supremacy of narrative control. That is the Machiavellian understanding that the real battlefield was never the argument. It was always the story that survived the argument. Drop my life is my narrative, and I write every chapter in the comments right now, because that is not just a phrase, that is a declaration of psychological sovereignty that every man in this audience needs to make and mean. Rule 7. Strike with precision, never with emotion. Every rule we have covered until this point has been about restraint, about observation, about the architecture of composure and the strategic accumulation of power in the face of disrespect. And now we arrive at the moment every man has been waiting for. Because there are times, rare but real, when the Machiavellian man does not simply observe and elevate and control narrative. There are times when he strikes. And when he does, it is not because his emotions demanded it. It is not because his ego could no longer tolerate the weight of the insult. It is because he made a calculated, cold, deliberate decision that a response was necessary, that the specific situation, the specific person, the specific social dynamics at play required him to demonstrate that there is a line, and crossing it has consequences. Because here is the thing that separates Machiavellian power from simple passivity. Composure is not the same as surrender. Silence is a weapon, yes, but it is not the only weapon in the arsenal of a man who has truly mastered himself. Sometimes the most powerful move is a precise, surgical strike that lands so cleanly, so unexpectedly, so devastatingly on the exact point of someone's weakness that it ends the game entirely, resets the dynamic permanently, and ensures that what just happened never happens again. But the key word, the word that determines whether this is power or self-destruction, is precision. Emotion swings wildly, it overshoots, it exposes, it creates collateral damage that you will spend months cleaning up. Precision cuts exactly where it needs to cut and nowhere else. The emotional man, when he finally retaliates, does so in a burst of accumulated rage that makes him look unstable, reactive, and small, even if his cause is entirely justified. He gives his enemy the moral high ground simply by the manner of his response. He turns himself into the aggressor in the eyes of every witness, and the original disrespect gets buried beneath the spectacle of his own emotional collapse. The Machiavellian man waits. He waits until the right moment, the right environment, the right leverage point presents itself. He does not strike when he is angry. He strikes when he is ready, which are never the same moment. He identifies exactly where the other person is most vulnerable: their reputation, their credibility, their relationships, their professional standing, their carefully constructed public image. And he applies pressure there, calmly, quietly, with the kind of detached efficiency that makes it clear to everyone watching that this was not an outburst. It was a decision. And decisions made from clarity are always more terrifying than explosions made from pain. Machiavelli was clear that the prince who punishes must punish in a way that sends a message not just to the transgressor, but to every person who might ever consider the same transgression in the future. Your response to disrespect, when you choose to respond, must function as a boundary that the entire social world around you can see and understand and internalize. It must communicate without being spoken explicitly. This man is not available for this treatment, and anyone who forgets that will be reminded in a way they will not enjoy. That is deterrence. That is the establishment of a social and psychological boundary so clear, so firm, so visibly enforced that most people never test it twice. And the beautiful dark irony of this rule is that the more composed you are in your precision, the more devastating the impact. Because when a calm man strikes, it frightens people in a way that an angry man never can. Anger is predictable. Calm precision is otherworldly. It suggests depths of capability and control that most people have never encountered and do not know how to process. It makes them wonder what else you are capable of, what else you have been planning quietly, what other moves exist behind those still unreadable eyes. And that wonder, that uncertainty, that fear of your depths, that is the ultimate form of power a man can hold over his social world. Not fear of your anger, but fear of your calm. Not fear of your explosion, but fear of your silence breaking. Drop "I don't explode, I execute" in the comments right now, because every man who truly understands this rule knows that those 4 words contain an entire philosophy of power that most people will spend their whole lives without grasping. Part 9. The closing. You were never meant to be handled. We have covered 7 rules. 7 principles carved from the coldest, most unforgiving corners of power philosophy. And if you have made it to this moment, if you have sat with every word, absorbed every layer, felt something shifting in the way you see yourself and the world around you, then understand this clearly. You were never the problem. You were never too sensitive, too weak, too much, or too little. You were simply operating without a system in a world that runs entirely on systems. Without rules in a game that has always had rules. Rules that the powerful know and the powerless are never taught. But you know them now. You know that your reaction is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely or not at all. You know that silence is not weakness. It is the language of men who have nothing to prove. You know that elevation is the most devastating response to anyone who ever dared to underestimate you. You know that disrespect is not a wound. It is a mirror held up to the person delivering it. You know that narrative, perception, and precision are the true instruments of lasting power. And most importantly, you know that the untouchable man is not born. He is built, deliberately, painfully, quietly. One moment of controlled restraint at a time, one strategic decision at a time, one day of disciplined building at a time, until the person who once flinched at disrespect becomes the person that others think twice, 3 times, 4 times before approaching with anything less than respect. That is the transformation this channel exists to guide you through. Not performance, not arrogance. Real, structural, psychological power that changes how you move, how you think, how you are received by every room you enter for the rest of your life. This is Machiavellian mind, and this is only the beginning. Drop "I don't react, I reign" one final time in the comments. Own it, mean it, live it. If this video shifted something in you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because what we covered today is just the foundation, and what is coming next will go even deeper. The throne is not given, it is taken. Now go take yours.